welcome to another installment of Marriage Mondays. Just going over what we discussed over the last few weeks. The first two priorities we discussed in week number 1 was prioritizing your time with the Lord, because obviously if you don't have your tank full, then there's no way that you can help encourage your spouse, especially when it comes to spiritual things. The other thing was prioritizing your time with your spouse, and that was making intentional time to spend with one another. And so I hope you've been able to do that. And then last week, we talked about prioritizing their position, meaning they are not your enemy. God has created husband and wife to come alongside of one another, to encourage one another, and to uplift one another. And so when the sooner you find out and the sooner you figure out that you're on the same team, once you establish that, it is a game changer. And it was definitely in our married life. And then the second thing we talked about last week was prioritizing prayer time with your spouse. And again, you're building that spiritual relationship with God, and then connecting with your spouse. And so today I'm just going to talk about one thing, and that's going to be communication. And I know the moment that I say communication between a husband and a wife, I can already feel eyes rolling. And so it's okay. I get that a lot whenever we discuss this section in any Bible study or in our Nearly Wed seminars, but offering up just a word of encouragement to us. Communication, something as simple as how was your day? If you think that every time you have to go into a summit and meeting for hours on end just to talk about your relationship, that's probably not the most encouraging thing and not the easiest thing to do. So I would say, start off with the simplest of questions with your spouse, and that is, how was your day? And genuinely be interested in what your spouse has to say. But here's the thing. You got to be quiet and listen, and actively listen. Not on your phone, not doing something else, reading something after you ask this question. Genuinely, you need to be engaged in the conversation. The other thing that I found helpful, and this was offered up to me, is, some of our families, they gather around the table in the evenings and they discuss their highs and lows of the day. And everyone around the table gets to talk about their highs and lows. And what that means is, what was the high point? What was the most exciting point? What was one great thing that happened that day? And then when you're talking about the lows, the low point of your day, what were some of the challenges? What were some of the frustrations? And so we say this is something as simple as talking with one another about your highs and lows. And then honestly, that goes into additional communication. And so that's a wonderful opportunity to connect with one another. And here's the other thing that's really, really important. As you talk about life, especially during this time, it's so hard to get just a few moments of concentrated time together. And so what I would say is this, a challenging question, and it's this: do you know what your spouse's personal goals are and what their professional goals are? And it is sad to hear that most of us don't have a clue what our spouse's personal or professional goals are. And I would say if you start with this question, you get to look into your spouse's heart, and you get to connect in a way that you never have before, primarily because we've never asked. And so I would recommend that as you progress through communication, if you can't find a few minutes to do this, please do, because you need to. Again, that opens up another door of communication, and I promise you, you will get some great answers. And not only that, you can be a source of encouragement to your spouse and help them in their goal setting and goal accomplishing venue. And then the other thing is this, as it relates to communication, we talk about this in our newly married class, and that is the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And understanding your spouse's love language is so critical. And so what you can do, if you don't already know it, he talks about the 5 love languages, and I'll just summarize just what they are. Words of affirmation, quality time is number 2. Number 3 is receiving gifts. Number 4 is acts of service. And number 5 is physical touch. And he unpacks this in his book, The 5 Love Languages. But also what's really neat is if you go to 5lovelanguages.com, you can take the love language quiz online, and it gives you the results. I think the quiz takes just about 5 minutes to do or less. And then what it does is it reveals what your love language is, and then what your spouse's love language is. And then when you get to compare notes and talk to one another about that, that deepens conversation and communication. And that's a wonderful, wonderful resource for you. And again, if you go to, you have to do the number 5, so 5, and then the word lovelanguages.com, and take that quiz, the 5 love language quiz. And I promise you, this will be an amazing opportunity and insightful once you take that quiz and you get to talk about it. So again, I hope this is encouraging to us. And sometimes we think it has to be a long and extensive period of time where, you have to have everything right before you can sit down and have a conversation with your spouse. And that's not true at all. You need to be intentional with your spouse, intentional time with your spouse. And around the dinner table or after dinner, just a few moments just to share with one another. And I promise you that really pays dividends in the life of your marriage as a couple. Well, take care. God bless. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.